Imagine a thriving medieval city, alive with the clamor of merchants, the ring of blacksmith hammers, and the laughter of children. Tournai, in the heart of Flanders, modern-day Belgium, was such a place in 1349. With a population of around 50,000 to 55,000 souls, it was a hub of trade, wool, cloth, and spices flowing through its gates from across Europe. Grand cathedrals pierced the sky, markets bustled, and faith bound the people together. But in the spring of that year, an invisible terror arrived. It wasn't an invading army or a natural disaster you could see coming. It was the Black Death, the deadliest pandemic in human history. In just 3 months, from April to July 1349, nearly half of Tournai's population, over 25,000 people, perished. Bodies piled in the streets, families shattered, and society teetered on the brink of collapse. This is the story of Tournai's nightmare, drawn from the words of those who lived through it. A fate that history nearly forgot, but one that echoes in our world today. The Black Death didn't begin in Tournai, or even in Europe. Its roots trace back to the vast steppes of Central Asia, around 1330 to 1340, in what is now Mongolia or China. Historians believe it started as a zoonotic disease, a plague bacterium called Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas that infested black rats and other rodents. These fleas could jump to humans, injecting the bacteria through bites. In 1346, the plague exploded during the Mongol siege of Kaffa, a Genoese trading post on the Black Sea in Crimea. Legend has it that the Mongol leader, Khan Yani Beg, catapulted plague-infected corpses over the city walls as a form of biological warfare. Whether true or not, the besieged Genoese fled on ships, unknowingly carrying the disease westward. By 1347, it reached Constantinople, Messina in Sicily, and Marseille in France. Ships docked with crews of ghosts, sailors dead or dying, their bodies covered in black swellings. Rats scurried off the vessels, spreading the fleas into crowded ports. The plague had 3 forms: bubonic, the most common, with painful lymph node swellings called buboes. Mortality rate, 60 to 90 if untreated. Septicemic, bacteria in the bloodstream, causing internal bleeding and black spots on the skin, hence Black Death. Almost always fatal. Pneumonic, airborne, infecting the lungs, spread by coughing. 95 to 100 fatal, killing in as little as 24 hours. From the ports, it raced inland along trade routes. By 1348, it ravaged Italy, France, and England. Chroniclers described it as apocalyptic. A third of the world died, wrote one. In reality, Europe lost 30 to 60 of its population, 25 to 50 million people. But in some places, like Tournai, the toll was even more concentrated and devastating. Tournai's location made it vulnerable. As a key city in the county of Flanders, it sat on major rivers like the Scheldt, connecting it to ports in Bruges and Antwerp. Merchants from plague-hit areas arrived daily. Rumors of the Great Mortality had trickled in by late 1348, tales of entire villages wiped out in Italy, bodies rotting in Florence's streets. But in Tournai, life went on. People prayed in churches, traded in markets, and dismissed the stories as distant woes. Little did they know, the plague was already at their gates. It struck in March or early April 1349. The first cases were subtle: a merchant from Paris complaining of fever, a weaver's family falling ill after hosting traders. Gilles Le Muissis, the abbot of St. Martin Abbey in Tournai and our primary eyewitness, chronicled it all in his Chronicle of the Black Death. He wrote, "The mortality began in our town with a few cases, but soon it spread like wildfire. At first, doctors attributed it to bad air, or miasma, a common medieval theory. They burned herbs like rosemary and juniper to purify the atmosphere. But the symptoms were unmistakable and horrifying: a sudden onset of chills and high fever, as if the body were on fire from within. Headache, nausea, and extreme fatigue, victims could barely stand. Then the buboes, swellings in the groin, armpits, or neck growing to the size of eggs or apples. They turned black and purple, oozing pus and blood. The pain was excruciating. People screamed through the night. Black spots or bruises appeared on the skin from hemorrhaging. Victims coughed up blood in the pneumonic form, their breath foul with decay. Delirium set in, hallucinations of demons or lost loved ones. Death came swiftly, often in 2 to 7 days for bubonic cases, faster for others. Gillis noted, men and women, young and old, rich and poor, all were struck down without mercy. A man healthy in the morning might be dead by evening. The plague spread through contact, fleas biting multiple hosts, infected clothing, or droplets from coughs. Crowded homes accelerated it, families of 5 to 10 sharing beds. By mid-April, deaths mounted from a handful to dozens daily. Panic ensued. People barricaded doors, but it was futile. The city council tried measures, quarantining the sick in makeshift hospitals, banning gatherings. But enforcement was weak, guards themselves fled or died. As May dawned, Tournai descended into hell. Daily deaths climbed to 500, then 800. Streets reeked of death, a metallic tang mixed with rot. Bodies lay unburied for days, attracting flies and rats. Gillis described, the air was so corrupted that no one could breathe it without peril. Burials became a nightmare. Cemeteries overflowed. Gravediggers, often the poor or convicts, demanded exorbitant wages, sometimes gold for a single corpse. When they couldn't keep up, mass pits were dug, trenches 20 to 30 feet deep outside the city walls. Bodies were dumped in layers, no shrouds for the poor, just thrown in like refuse. Priests sprinkled lime to hasten decomposition and curb the stench. One famous illustration from Gillis's chronicle shows citizens hauling coffins, men and women laboring together, children watching in horror. Churches turned into morgues. Bells tolled incessantly for the dead, but soon fell silent as bell-ringers perished. Priests heard confessions around the clock. One reportedly took 500 in a day before collapsing. Last rites were rushed. Many died without sacraments, fearing eternal damnation. Food and economy crumbled. Farmers abandoned fields, terrified of infection. Bread prices soared tenfold. Starvation weakened survivors, making them more susceptible. Markets emptied, merchants fled or died. Tournai's wool trade, its lifeblood, halted. Abandoned houses were looted, but looters often caught the plague. Social bonds frayed. Parents abandoned sick children, spouses left dying partners. Gillis wrote of orphans wandering streets, begging amid corpses. Some turned to desperation, thieves preyed on the weak, while others joined flagellant processions, groups of penitents whipping themselves bloody in the streets, chanting prayers to appease God. They believed the plague was divine punishment for sins like greed or heresy. Blame spread like the disease. Jews were accused of poisoning wells, false rumors fueled pogroms across Europe. In Tournai, tensions rose, though major violence was averted compared to Strasbourg or Basel, where thousands were burned alive. Still, suspicion poisoned communities. Medical efforts were primitive and futile. Doctors wore rudimentary masks stuffed with herbs, precursors to the iconic beak masks. They lanced buboes, applied poultices of onions and herbs, or bled patients. Some advised fleeing to the countryside, but the plague followed. Gillis himself survived, perhaps due to isolation in his abbey, but lost many monks. By June, Tournai was a ghost town. Half-empty streets echoed with moans. The city council struggled, officials died or deserted. Laws broke down, debts went unpaid, wills unexecuted. Inheritance chaos ensued, entire families vanished, leaving estates to distant kin or the church. Psychologically, it was Armageddon. People saw biblical signs, comets in the sky, real ones appeared in 1348 earthquakes. Chronicles spoke of the end of the world. Faith wavered. Why would God allow this? Some turned to hedonism, feasting wildly before death, others to extreme piety. The peak hit in June-July, 800 to 1,000 deaths daily. Gillis estimated 25,000 total dead by summer's end, nearly half the population. Whole neighborhoods silenced. Survivors wandered dazed, immune or lucky, but scarred. Why so severe in Tournai? Density, crowded urban living. Trade links, constant influx from infected areas. No immunity, First wave hit a virgin population. Weather, mild spring aided flea survival. By late July, deaths slowed. Reasons, fewer hosts left, some immunity developed, cooler weather curbed fleas. Gillis noted relief. The mortality ceased as suddenly as it began. But the city was forever changed. Immediate aftermath, labor shortages. Wages doubled for workers, peasants demanded better terms, weakening feudalism. Tournai's economy rebounded slowly, but with fewer people, land values dropped. Orphans flooded monasteries, crime spiked briefly. Long term, the Black Death reshaped Europe. Population crash led to the Renaissance. Fewer people meant more resources. Innovation. Art darkened, themes of death dominated, like the Dance of Death. Murals. Medicine advanced slightly, quarantine concepts emerged. Recurrences hit Tournai in 1361, 1369, and beyond, but never as bad. Gillis survived to 1352, his chronicle a vital record. Today, Tournai stands rebuilt, its medieval core a UNESCO site. But mass graves lie beneath parks and streets, a silent reminder. Tournai 1349 wasn't just a local tragedy, it was humanity's fragility laid bare. An invisible enemy toppled a civilization in months. Yet we endured. In our era of pandemics, this story warns, preparedness, unity, and science are our shields. The Black Death killed half a city in 3 months, but from its ashes, the world was reborn. Remember Tournai, lest history repeat. Precautions failed. City authorities tried preventive measures, cleaning streets, banning sick travelers, restricting animals, enforcing hygiene for butchers, expelling immoral groups like prostitutes, and holding public prayers/processions to appease God. None worked. Rapid escalation, the plague spread through crowded urban living, trade, and contact. Fleas on rats carried Yersinia pestis, jumping to humans via bites or contact with infected clothing/bodies. Symptoms, as described by eyewitnesses: sudden high fever, chills, extreme fatigue. Painful swellings, buboes, in groin, armpits, or neck size of eggs or apples, oozing pus/blood. Black/purple spots from internal bleeding. In pneumonic form, coughing blood, airborne spread. Most died within 2 to 7 days. Mortality 60 to 90 untreated. Estimates vary due to exaggeration in chronicles. Boccaccio, 100,000 dead in the city, likely overstated. He said more than pre-plague population estimates. Modern historians, Florence lost 50 to 80 of its population, from 110,000 to 120,000 pre-1348 to 50,000 by 1351. Tax records and comparisons suggest 60,000 to 80,000 deaths in the city proper. Europe-wide 30 to 60 loss, 25 to 50 million total. Florence's toll was among the worst, earning it the nickname Plague of Florence. Long-term effects: economic shift, labor shortage raised wages, weakened feudal ties, boosted commerce/mobility. Social/cultural, increased piety/art focused on death, e.g., danse macabre themes. Led to Renaissance innovations, more resources per survivor, questioning old authorities. Recurrences, plague returned, e.g., 1360s, but never as bad. Florence's story mirrors Tournai's, brutal, society-shattering, but Florence's literate chroniclers, especially Boccaccio, made it one of the best documented. It's a stark reminder of how fragile even thriving cities were against invisible threats. If you're comparing to Tournai or want visuals of medieval Florence/plague art, let me know. Genoese ships brought the plague directly to Venice and Genoa in late 1347/early 1348, bypassing slower overland routes from southern Italy. The city was already stressed, overcrowded with famine refugees, and a major earthquake on January 25, 1348, damaged buildings and heightened fear. Plague hit in April 1348, spreading rapidly through contact, fleas on rats, human to human in pneumonic form via coughing, contaminated goods, and crowded living, sudden fever, chills, extreme weakness. Painful buboes, swellings, in groin, armpits, neck, egg or apple-sized, black/purple, oozing pus/blood. Black spots/bruises from internal bleeding. In pneumonic cases, coughing blood and rapid death. often 1 to 3 days. Foul odors from victims, delirium and despair. Contemporary inscription in Venice's Scuola di Santa Maria della Carita described both bubonic, glandular swellings, and pneumonic, spitting blood, forms, noting contagion. It seemed that this malady spread from one to another, from the healthy to the sick. Streets filled with bodies, abandonment of sick by family/friends, parents fleeing children, etc. Bodies transported by barge to burial on lagoon islands, gravediggers and porters died too. Daily burials, 25 to 30 initially in Rialto Cemetery, but soon overwhelmed, mass pits on islands, no coffins for many. Smells of decay permeated houses where dead were left. Panic led to flight. So many officials and citizens fled that in July 1348, the Great Council banned Venetians from leaving, threatening loss of status/position, to prevent total collapse of government and order. Economy halted, trade disrupted, markets empty, food shortages. Doge Andrea Dandolo, reigning Doge, died in 1354. His chronicles describe the outbreak. Monk Francesco della Grazia and Lorenzo de Monacis, later chronicler, detailed the horror, bodies in streets, abandonment, mass burials on islands. No single famous literary account like Boccaccio's in Florence, but Venetian records note extreme mortality and efforts to maintain order. General European observers, e.g., in chronicles, grouped Venice with Genoa/Florence as early hard-hit ports. Estimates, up to 50 of the population died, around 50,000 to 60,000, some older accounts say 100,000, likely exaggerated. Venice lost tens of thousands in months, one source notes. Almost 100,000 dead, in round figures, reflecting the scale of devastation. High due to density, trade, and initial lack of effective barriers, though Venice acted faster than most. Response and Venice pioneered public health measures that influenced the world, appointed emergency sages, Savi, in 1348 to manage the crisis, precursor to permanent health board. Isolated ships in the lagoon, early attempts at detention, 30 to 40 days. Buried dead on remote lagoon islands to limit spread. These laid groundwork for formal quarantine, from 40 giorni, equals 40 days later formalized with Lazaretto Vecchio, Old Lazaretto, island of Santa Maria di Nazareth, established 1423 for plague victims, and Lazaretto Nuovo, New Lazaretto, 1468 for ship quarantine and disinfection with herbs/vinegar/ash. Venice's system, isolating arrivals, fumigating goods, health magistrates, became a model, though in 1348 it was reactive and too late to stop the main wave. Venice recovered faster than many cities due to its wealth, trade networks, and organized governance, but recurring plagues, e.g., 1575 to 1576, 1630 to 1631, hit hard. The 1348 outbreak scarred the city, contributing to themes of death in art/literature and advancing early epidemiology. Compared to Florence, 60+ loss, vivid Boccaccio description, or Tournai, half in 3 months, Venice's toll was severe but mitigated by isolation tactics. If you'd like a full 60-minute script like the Tournai one, more on later plagues, or comparisons, just say.